say, Staffordshire and Essex?
Staffordshire and Essex. One of the things I will say about Essex is, and it was, if I'm frank with you, surprising initially because I didn't know that much about Essex. But I feel that, and I'm generalising here, but the experience that I've had since I've been here is that people who reside in Essex have still got that passion and sense of community with Essex, and that's really useful when you're trying to work in partnership, because you need people to have that sense of community. Community for me breaks down to two words: common unity, and it's about trying to achieve that common unity with the police and partners, because let's be frank, we can't solve all of the social ills on our own. We need people to take responsibility, and that's why I'm quite big on the community efficacy of getting the community to work with the police to resolve problems.
So how can the community work with the police?
Well, there's a whole range of things, and I think the best way I can articulate that is to give you an example. We as a police, as part of our neighbourhood policing approach, have created a number of neighbourhood action panels. What they are in essence are where members of the public from a particular area with a buy-in for that area can meet regularly with the police, and rather than the police setting the objectives in terms of the service that we were going to provide, the idea is that the community set the objectives for the police, and one of those is in association with antisocial behaviour or perceived antisocial behaviour, particularly in relation to generation disharmony. And what the community have done in the Basildon area, and they're just starting to do it here in Thurrock as well, is that they will take more of a conciliatory approach to young people in the sense of carrying out activities to divert them away from committing acts of antisocial behaviour. My experience is that in the majority, antisocial behaviour and young people committing antisocial behaviour is not always the case. However, those that do flout the law in relation to that, then we will deal with them.
Would you say that instead of getting rid of the Bobby on the beats, that you've rebranded it?
Well, what we've tried to do with that is to maximise the number of officers that we've got on the beat, supplemented, it must be said, by PCSOs, police community support officers, who, as part of neighbourhood policing teams, because that's our ethos, so one of the styles of policing that we've got is to make police officers more accessible and familiar within their areas, because it's intrinsically linked to, in my opinion, the fear of crime, because the irony of the situation is that crime within Thurrock has fallen considerably over the last 3 years. However, you and I both know that that's not the perception of people, and one of the ways of actually changing that perception is making police forces and police officers more accessible, where we can actually communicate with people, reassure them that we're doing things. Because one of the things I always ask when I go to public meetings is, how many burglary dwellings do you think that we have in Thurrock in a day? And I've had varying comments from 100. I think the lowest that I ever had was 15. The reality of the situation is there's some days when we only have 2. Rarely do we go any more than 3 or 4 a day. And again, it's trying to change that. Neighbourhood policing isn't just about reassurance, however. It's about working with the community to start to problem solve those areas that have been routinely high crime and disorder areas, through taking a partnership approach to trying to do that. So for example, young people on street corners, the example that I've already given, doing more than just moving them on. You know, is there any facilities that we can provide for them in collaboration with the local authority, for example? Is there any activities that we can do? I think there's a long way that we can go yet in relation to making sure that we maximise the visibility element. For example, our Chief Constable has recently announced that over the next 5 years there will be 600 additional officers within Essex Police. No additional funding at this stage to the taxpayer. Well, I will be getting and fighting for the people of Thurrock, a large slice of that 600, so I can then maximise the use of those officers within neighbourhood policing to increase the visibility more.
I guess, as you mentioned, recruitment is one of the hard challenges, though, for Thurrock is retention, because we're in the shadow of the Met.
Yeah, and that's something that, if I'm frank with you, that I wouldn't go as far as to exaggerate and say it's a bit of a myth, because it isn't. But the numbers are very, very small in relation to people transferring over. One of the potential reasons for that could be that they do get an extra remuneration within the Met. However, what we're finding quite recently is that we're having more people transfer from the Met into Essex Police or coming back to Essex Police. We've also got an aggressive campaign to attract sergeants in particular into Essex Police from other forces, and we've had one quite recently who's transferred in from Hertfordshire Constabulary. I haven't suffered, and I'm not being complacent about that, but I haven't suffered from a massive brain drain from Essex Police to the Met.
I guess we'd have to ask, in 2008, with the recession upon us, you know, even you go down the Great High Street, there are shops closing down, estate agents and restaurants. Do you have to prepare in any way to see a change in social trends?
Well, I mean, there's the view that's articulated by a number of criminologists to say in times of social and economic hardship, the potential for crime to increase is apparent. I would actually say what that does do, it gives the police an opportunity with partners to carry out more intense activities in relation to reducing crime. My philosophy is to provide a service that isn't just generic, but it's very much specific in terms of focusing into hotspot areas of crime and disorder. I've got a team of analysts who provide me with information in which I can then apportion my finite amount of resources to try to reduce problems. So I think what it does do, it gives you an opportunity to be even more sophisticated in terms of how you deploy your resources. The interesting thing, again, just to reiterate, and then I promise you I won't raise it again, is that we are actually getting more officers. We're bucking the national trend in terms of police officers. We're getting more into Essex Police. So that gives me a greater opportunity to make sure I optimise the use of those resources to get crime reduction. My key aims are, and they aren't necessarily in descending order, but the number one is to reduce crime. Now that sounds like a statement. For me, that's reducing the number of victims of crime. Quite recently I was in the backyard of Southend Police Station, and I saw a lad who had vomit down the front, and I went over and spoke to the individual with a police officer, and it transpired that he was a victim of a robbery. And for me, you know, the police and other agencies can get anaesthetised to crime, but victims don't. And I'm passionate about making sure they reduce.
An array of different challenges in Thurrock, haven't you? From, you know, you mentioned something like DP World, a huge £1.5 billion port, to areas of urban deprivation. Do you see that as part of the challenge?
Yeah, I mean, it's that is something from an environmental scanning point of view that myself and my team are acutely aware of in the strategic sense, because I see part of my role is to plan not just to today or tomorrow, although policing can sometimes be a short-term concept because it's a politically driven organisation. But I see an intrinsic part of my role is to make sure that we plan over the next 12 months to 3 years in relation to our activities. What we have seen here is a growth in diverse communities, almost pluralised communities, which not only does it provide its challenges, but it also significantly provides its benefits. One of the things that I won't tolerate within my division will be any growth in hate crime incidents. That is something, not in a politically correct way, but in a way that goes back to what my values are in relation to policing. I'm not going to tolerate that type of bullying behaviour where people, because of their race, are picked on. So I've got a whole range of different resources that are available to me to actually deal with that and the challenges that actually poses. In relation to DP or Dubai ports, only 2 weeks ago was a strategic planning meeting in relation to that. Again, from an economic point of view, I see that being something that the people of Thurrock may welcome, around job creation, particularly against the backdrop of credit crunch and economic restraint, etc. For me, though, it poses a lot of challenges, and we've got to be prepared for those challenges. 18,000 vehicles or lorries per day, loading up one every 3 minutes. The frontage in terms of the riverside is 2 miles, so it gives you a perspective how big the complex is going to be. A number of workers that are going to be on site there, the security, the crime reduction element of it. And again, with the district commander here in Thurrock, we're already planning for those in a phased way and what we're going to do in terms of making sure that we don't.